Alright guys, welcome to Flavo Rihanna's MMA show. I'm your host, Flavo Rihanna, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright guys, so we ended up concluding UFC 263 in Glendale, Arizona. Alright, headlined by Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori. Alright, so great card. Alright, the fans were rocking in Arizona. I personally wanted to be there. Alright, everything from the moments that we had from the main card, the early prelims were phenomenal. Okay, that slobber knocker that we had to open up the card with Carlos Felipe versus Jake Collier. Look, guys, I understand that Carlos Felipe may not be a top 5 heavyweight, right? He's not a ranked heavyweight at all, but he's an exciting fighter. He's an exciting fighter to watch, and that slugfest that he had with Jake Collier, phenomenal stuff to open up the card. All right, that's something that you want to have to open up a card. Is somebody like a Carlos Felipe who's gonna want to slug it out, is not gonna want to grapple with you. All right, he wants to just put on a show for the fans, and his type of performances, right, usually result into performance bonuses. But yeah, I wanted to put that out there. Great first fight to open up the the UFC 263 card. But we're gonna get it started off right now talking about the main event. So the main event was Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori. All right, the rematch. Their first fight was back in 2018 in the same arena, in the Gila River arena in Glendale, Arizona, or Phoenix. I forget which one it is exactly. But the first fight, it was Israel Adesanya's, if I'm not mistaken, second fight in the UFC. Marvin Vettori's fifth fight, and it ended up going to decision. It became a split decision. Two judges had it for Adesanya. One judge had it for Marvin Vettori. The one judge that had it for Vettori was Chris Lee. All right, and I rewatched the fight, and I was like, it wasn't close. Adesanya did win that first fight. Fairly easy. Well, not fairly easy. I mean, he lost the third round, right? But he won the first two rounds. Fairly convinced. He won them fairly convincingly. And Vettori was still hanging his head, saying that, hey, he won that fight. So Adesanya granted him the rematch. All right. Obviously, Vettori has improved. Adesanya has improved heavily. And, there was a lot at stake. I mean, look, Adesanya just came back from a loss. Him trying to become double champ. He moving up to light heavyweight, losing to Jan Blachowicz. And Vettori, I believe his match was in April. He had a match where he ended up dominating Kevin Holland. And he has improved. His last loss was Adesanya in 2018. And he was still holding on to that, saying, hey, I ended up winning that first fight. I got robbed. Well, they ended up having the fight again, Saturday. And Adesanya ended up winning all 5 rounds. The same manner, convincingly. Attacking the lead leg. Vettori was very heavy on that lead leg. I mean, he wasn't trying to switch stances whatsoever. You also had him trying to strike with Adesanya. And then also the question mark that was going into that fight. If Vettori was able to use his wrestling, right? Will he be able to hold on to Adesanya? And has Adesanya improved his takedown defense? Well, we kind of got the answer. So what it seems like, that big weight description, the big weight difference that we had with Blachowicz and Adesanya clearly played a big factor as for why Adesanya wasn't able to get around. I mean, it was kind of a silly and a dumb move that Adesanya did not want to put weight. He relied so much on speed and accuracy and precision, and which that wasn't going to work against the light heavyweights. But that's able to work with the middleweights, okay? And Adesanya improved. He was taken down a couple times, but he was able to get back up, which is something that we did not see in his last fight. And he was able to, walk up, use the cage to, cage walk. And, yeah, I mean, we just saw that, it was kind of hard to keep him down. It wasn't anything like the last fight. Vettori had no chance of winning the fight if he was going to be striking with him. And Adesanya was just picking him apart from the outside, attacking the outside of his leg, all right? Having Vettori bite on every single feint that he was throwing out there, all right? Switching stances. It was a 5-0 sweep. And at this point, I cannot see Marvin Vettori getting another title shot as long as Israel Adesanya is champion. So what's next for the champion? Well, what's next for the champion is that he ended up calling out Robert Whittaker, which that's the fight to make. That's the fight that we all wanted to see. That was a fight that we were supposed to see originally. But Adesanya was really wanting to have this fight in June, right? He wanted to be more active. He wanted to defend his belt. He wanted to redeem the fact that, hey, I lost back in March. I can turn it around back in 3 months and go, defend my belt at middleweight, in which he was able to do so. Now he wants to fight in October. He had said, hey, I want to fight in Auckland, right? Auckland, New Zealand, where is the current residency of Israel Adesanya, right? Unfortunately, the way that the COVID rules are being handled in that whole Auckland, New Zealand area, also in Australia, is the fact that they're very strict out there, and it's very hard for me to imagine that they're going to be able to have the UFC, holding an event out there, unless they're only using, people from within that region, people from the Australian region, the New Zealand region, and stuff like that. But outside of that, I see it very hard for Israel Adesanya to having his wish, having him fight his fight in New Zealand. But I do see that happening. I do see Adesanya defending his belt against Robert Whittaker. I don't know who would be able to win that fight, just because Whittaker has improved immensely. Adesanya has improved every single time that he's gotten into that octagon. And I think it's going to be a very different matchup than when we saw the last time. Last time we saw Whittaker bull rushed Adesanya, and Adesanya clipped him. He just stepped back and just threw the right hook, and it just knocked down Whittaker, and Adesanya just capitalized on the moment, and he was able to, become the new middleweight champion. I don't think that's going to happen this time around. I think we're going to see a very patient Robert Whittaker. I think we're going to see a very patient Adesanya, and they're going to be more of a kickboxing type of fight, all right? Instead of something that you would see in a street fight. But what's next now for Marvin Vettori? Well, he's going to go into the back of the line, right? I mean, I'm not saying this guy's going to be inside the 15th rank, with the 15th ranked middleweight, but what I am going to say is that he's going to be in the category of Kelvin Gastelum, where he's going to have to, make up a lot of wins, all right, to even get consideration on getting into a title fight. He's going to have to fight like your Darren Tills, your Derek Brunson, your Paulo Costa. Actually, a Paulo Costa versus a Marvin Vettori is something I would like to see. Will that happen? Well, the situation with Paulo Costa wanting to get paid more, all right, and Dana White not budging because of the fact that how Paulo looked in his last fight. Well, Paulo Costa is not in no situation where he's going to be able to deny fights. Well, that's something that I would like to see Vettori take on. But yeah, Vettori's going to have to probably get you about like 3, maybe 4 wins in order to get into consideration of getting into a title fight again. But that's that for the main event. For the co-main event, wow, that was something special, all right? That is the main reason why I wanted to be I wanted to be at the Highland River Arena, is for the co-main event. The co-main event, honestly, could have won Fight of the Year last year if it wasn't for the Joanna Jędrzejczyk Weili Zhang fight. And what a show we ended up getting. All right, it was a domination fight the second time around, but the first fight was phenomenal. And the first fight ended up becoming a majority decision. Deiveson Figueiredo ends up retaining his title because of a draw. I'm sorry, not majority decision, majority draw. Figueiredo retains his belt because of a draw. So we get fast forwarded 6 months from now, 6 months from the first fight to the second fight, and here we go. Deiveson Figueiredo defending his belt against Brandon Moreno, Part 2. Okay, Moreno said in after the fight that he had trained for 6 months. He used the whole 6 months as a training camp to prepare and to, prepare his tools, prepare his skills, so when he gets into the ring with or the octagon against Figueiredo. And wow, those 6 months of training, those 6 months of drills really did show, because Moreno dominated that fight. All right, from round 1, ends up dropping Deiveson Figueiredo with a jab, and honestly, I thought the fight was going to be over in that first round. Round 2, he dominated that second round. Moreno was using his boxing and he's using his jiu-jitsu and everything was on point. Everything from his preparation, his technique was on point. And then in round 3, he went back to the jiu-jitsu and ends up using a rear naked chokehold, forcing Figueiredo to tap out. And now we have, for the first time ever, the UFC has their first Mexican-born champion in the UFC, all right? And it becomes Brandon Moreno, the new flyweight champion from Tijuana, Mexico. Wow, that was phenomenal stuff right there, because the fact that I picked him to win, but I didn't pick him to win that in that fashion right there. He dominated all 3 rounds. I thought it was going to go all 5 rounds. I honestly thought that was going to go something close to what we saw in the first fight. But I feel like there were certain factors into this. One, the preparation of Brandon Moreno. He had said that he is not scared of Figueiredo's power. He has power just like anybody else. I thought he had, supreme power. But once I felt his power in that first fight, I wasn't scared anymore. So I knew what to deal with, and I'll be able to handle it. 2, I think the weight cut of Figueiredo was super terrible, because he weighed into the what's it called, for the weigh-ins, I think 40 seconds before the ticker, all right, before the ticker ends up stopping. If he did not weigh in before that time, if he waited after that time, then forget about it. That the fight would have been canceled, and I don't know what would have happened. Would they have surrendered? Would they had to vacate the title? Would Figueiredo had to pay like a fine? I don't know, because I had never seen something like that happen. But Figueiredo ends up weighing in at exactly 125 pounds. And then afterwards, he was crying. I mean, he must have had such a terrible weight cut. I don't know how much weight he ended up gaining, all right, or he had to try to lose within that time. I don't know how long his training camp was, but something wasn't right in his weight cut. I had to imagine that he probably had to cut something of like 20 to 25 pounds, which is an enormous amount of weight that you're going to have to try to cut in such a short period of time. And maybe he needs to hire a better nutritionist. Maybe he has to be around a better trainers just so they can maintain his weight at a certain way, so he is able to make 125 pounds. Because if not, then he's going to have to move up to bantamweight. And if he moves up to bantamweight, well, then things get a little more complicated, because there are taller bantamweights like Sugar Sean O'Malley. There are heavier bantamweights like you have like a Marab Dishwalavili, all right? So flyweight seems like the perfect category for Deiveson Figueiredo, but as long as he's able to make it. What's next for Figueiredo? What's next for Brandon Moreno? Well, there is the possibility of a trilogy fight, and that will definitely sell, where I imagine the UFC wants to do it in Mexico, since they have their very first Mexican-born champion. But, like I said, the way how the world is working with COVID-19 and stuff like that, I don't know how that's going to be possible, because I believe that Mexico is still at half capacity, and Dana White will not budge. It's only full capacity or nothing, all right? And they could be that, or they could be the Alexander Pantoja or the Askar Askarov opponents, that could be thrown in for Moreno. I believe Askar Askarov fought Moreno into a draw. I did not get to see that fight, but from what I heard, it wasn't really that competitive, and Moreno should have won. For Deiveson Figueiredo, he could fight Alexander Pantoja, or maybe even the winner of Brandon Royval. I forgot who he's fighting. I think he's fighting Pantoja, if I'm not mistaken, right? Whoever wins that fight, Figueiredo could fight him, and we could do that. But yeah, it's a lot of good stuff at flyweight. Flyweight looks phenomenal right now. We have a likable champion. Not to say that Figueiredo wasn't a likable champion, but the character of Brandon Moreno is just very likable, and it just draws people to wanting to see him fight and hear his interviews. Moving on to the third fight, we had Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz. Now, this was a crazy fight, because for the first 4 rounds, Leon Edwards was dominating, right? And we have always said that Leon Edwards is the most unluckiest fighter in the world, and he was dominating for the first 24 minutes, right? And then in that last minute, right, Nate Diaz does a Stockton slap, and then he follows up with a hook right into the chin of Leon Edwards, right? And Leon Edwards starts, stumbling, right? His legs are giving out, and instead of Nate Diaz capitalizing on the moment, he points right directly at Leon Edwards, saying like, "I got you." And if Nate Diaz had maybe like an extra minute, right, or if he would have bull rushed towards Leon Edwards and try to push him down and then capitalize on a ground and pound, we would have had a different outcome. And hey, Nate Diaz probably would have won the fight. He would have been fighting Kamaru Usman for the title. But instead, Leon Edwards won. He won 4 rounds to 1. All right. Dana White said after the fight was over in a press conference that Colby Covington is still the #1 contender. And Kamaru Usman even said it himself that Leon Edwards didn't do anything to impress him for Kamaru Usman to give him a title shot right away. So there you have it. I mean, what's next for Nate Diaz? I mean, if Conor loses next month to Dustin Poirier, it seems pretty clean and obvious that the trilogy should be set for Conor versus Nate Diaz. That would sell. You don't need a title on that card. But if Dustin Poirier, loses Conor McGregor, you could actually have that matchup, and you could have that at 170. And they were supposed to fight back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, but that fight ended up falling through. Second fight of the card was Damian Maia versus Belal Muhammad. This was actually the snoozer of the main card. It was just Damian Maia trying to hold on to Belal Muhammad, trying to take him down, and Belal Muhammad having great takedown defense was not allowing Damian Maia to bring him down to the floor. Reason being, we all know what Damian Maia does on the floor. This guy's a wizard on the floor, and he'll choke you out. He'll make you tap out in any shape or form. All right, whether it's an arm bar, heel hug, guillotine, rear naked choke, you name it. That's what Damian Maia will end up doing. Belal Muhammad stopped that, and he ended up winning the fight. I think it was like 29-28, Belal Muhammad. And then the first fight of the card was Jamal Hill versus Paul Craig. So if you guys ended up watching the embedded series on YouTube, on the UFC's YouTube channel, Jamal Hill and Paul Craig had an exchange of words at the Athletes Hotel. They were about to go at it. I forgot exactly what was being said. Something about nasty breath, and then Jamal Hill says he has some nasty hands, and they were going to go at it. Security jumps into the way. I wanted to see what was going to happen. Paul Craig uses jiu-jitsu, ends up capturing the arm, I believe it was the right arm of Jamal Hill, hooks it, right, puts his arms, wraps his legs around his arm, and then goes for the armbar, and I thought he broke his arm, gets Jamal Hill in a triangle chokehold and an armbar, and the arm is just dangling around. It's like this, dangling. And the referee, I don't know who this referee was. Apparently this is a local ref. Apparently he gets a lot of the big fights that come into to Arizona, and he doesn't realize that the arm is broken. All right. He later realizes, like 40 seconds later, that Jamal Hill's trying to wave his attention, like, hey, taps out, all right, and the arm is not actually it's not even broken. It was dislocated. Dana White said it, dislocated, and honestly, like, hey, that was so bad on the referee. Paul Craig could have caused so much more damage onto that arm if the referee didn't notice any longer that, hey, there's something wrong with Jamal Hill's arm. But yeah, guys, that ended up happening. One of the scariest things I've seen. All right, I can only imagine how Jamal Hill was feeling. Surprised he wasn't like screaming in agony, but they were able to put the arm back into place. It's good as new. It was only dislocated. It was not broken. And Paul Craig ends up improving to 6-4 in the UFC. I picked him to lose because I thought Jamal Hill had a lot more potential. But once you get caught in that armbar, I mean, you're just forced to tap out. Just that referee couldn't see it. But yeah, guys, so that covers everything on this recap of UFC 263. Next month, we have the trilogy of Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. That is a stack card. That is going to be on July 10th. All right. And I'll see you guys later. So then, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys at a later date. Peace, guys, and have a good one.